There's been talks about Derek Carr possibly having a contract extension. He currently has 2 years left on his deal, and it's around 45 million-ish remaining on his contract. What are your thoughts on the Raiders possibly extending Derek Carr? Do you think that's a good idea for Las Vegas? What price range do you think that would be? Everything like that.
Extend him. Do it. Keep him there. I don't want to see Aaron Rodgers, or Deshaun Watson, or any of these guys that are up for trade. If there's drama in Seattle again with Russell Wilson towards the end of the year, that's kind of just like a little cloud that's hanging over the entire NFL also that everyone forgot about. But extend him so that way it keeps those quarterbacks out of Las Vegas. I don't think Derek Carr is a bad quarterback. I'm not trying to hate on him or anything. I think that he would need a team stacked around him to make a Super Bowl run. Even his MVP year, I was not as confident as Raiders fans that they were going to the Super Bowl that year before he got injured, just because they weren't really a complete team. They were on his back. He was taking them with guys like Seth Roberts being one of his key weapons. We saw what happened with Seth Roberts since then. I don't even know where Seth Roberts is. I think he went to the Jets for a little while, and I haven't heard anything from him since then. But yeah, I think Derek Carr could be a quarterback, a game manager style quarterback that can take a team to the Super Bowl, but they're going to need to stack that thing around him. So if they think that they can get him for a little bit cheaper than a mega max deal will be to get a superstar quarterback and spend that money on the defense and spend that money. And he doesn't even need all-star wide receivers to be effective. He's pretty good with what he has had in his career, which has not been a whole lot of anything. But just at least get him a defense. I think that's the biggest thing for Las Vegas over the next couple of years is to get Derek Carr and John Gruden a defense to work with that's going to be solid. They picked up Gus Bradley, and Raiders fans think that this is their coming to Jesus, that he's going to fix the entire defense. I got bad news. I thought the same thing when Gus came to the Chargers, and our defense was good his first year and even his second year as defensive coordinator. But you could tell once Phillip Rivers left and the talent wasn't quite at the same level with the Chargers on defense, things changed quite a bit. So I don't think the Raiders have that talent level that Gus Bradley's defensive scheme requires, which is basically just a cover three zone is his go-to, his bread and butter, which works when you have high IQ zone players like Richard Sherman when he was coaching the LOB, when you have high IQ zone players like Cam Chancellor, when you got freak of nature safeties who can fly around and make big hits and make big plays on the ball like Earl Thomas. The plain cover three works then. But when you don't have playmakers like that, the cover three doesn't work. And you also need a really good linebacking core, and I believe that that's one of the Raiders' weaknesses. So we'll see what happens. I think Derek Carr just needs that cast around him to really take the Raiders to the next level. And until he gets that, they're going to continue to be this around even, sometimes in the wild card picture team. But if they want to extend Derek Carr as far as price tag wise, if they do it now, while all these quarterbacks are on the market, like obviously you're not Aaron Rodgers or you're not I wouldn't even say I might take Matthew Stafford over him. They're right around the same area that you can get him for a little bit more of a discount. And that's what the Raiders want to do. Do it and then spend the extra money on the defense.
Derek Carr to me reminds me a lot of Andy Dalton, especially with the Raider fans having mixed feelings about, Carr. This is kind of like Dalton's last year or two with Cincinnati. Lots of Bengal fans, had mixed emotions. We need to get rid of him. He can maybe give us, a couple good years, maybe take us to a playoff run. Obviously it did not happen. Like you mentioned, Derek Carr had a MVP type season a few years back. Andy Dalton did too. And Derek Carr, to me, he's not great. He's not horrible. He's good. But I agree with what you said. He needs weapons around him. He will never be the reason that you're going to be in the Super Bowl. To me, I think it would have been super smart if the Raiders would have attempted to trade to get Julio Jones and get some pieces on defense. Then I think the Raiders would, be a really nice contender. But honestly, you look at the Raiders, roster right now, their defense is not good. It's really, really bad. They did draft Trevon Moehrig, who I thought that was one of the best picks in the entire draft. He was extremely underrated. But, Derek Carr, he's right in the middle of the pack. To me, I think he's between 13 and 18, the best quarterbacks in the league, right around there. maybe right in the middle, 15, 16 type of deal. I think Matthew Stafford is 100 times better than Derek Carr. I think Derek Carr, he's more than likely, Derek Carr is not going to be the reason you win games. He's only going to be the reason you lose games type of deal. And the Raiders, in my opinion, I think they have the worst roster in the AFC West. If Drew Lock can have a good season, I'm not talking about like a horrible season or a great season, just good, like 25 touchdowns, something like that. I think the Broncos are playoff contenders. And, I mean, that leaves the Raiders at the bottom of the division. And then after this season, you're going to have Derek Carr on 1 year left of his contract, being last in the AFC West with a more than likely horrible defense. You don't have a ton of weapons on the offensive side of the ball. To me, I think it has a lot to determine how the Raiders will play this season. I think they are somewhat of a little bit of an underrated team. But if Locke is good, I mean, to me, the Raiders are obviously going to be the worst team in the AFC West. I know, Joe won't like that, but it's pretty much just the truth, in my opinion. And Carr, I mean, I think he gets overhated at times, though. He's kind of like Andy Dalton in that aspect as well. If the Raiders, decide to extend Derek Carr, in my opinion, I think it should be similar to what his contract is right now, 2 for about 45-ish. I'm not paying any over that because he's never won a playoff game. Mm-hmm. Andy Dalton hasn't either. And I think there's a lot more similarities between Dalton and Carr. I'm definitely taking Carr over Dalton. And in their prime, it would be close as well. But years ago I went to a Bengals game and they played the Raiders. And it was to Darren Waller. Derek Carr threw an over-the-shoulder pass to Darren Waller. I've been to probably about 30 Bengals games. It was probably the best pass I've ever seen for a quarterback. Carr throwing to Waller. He is underrated at times, but other times, we were talking earlier about Chris Middleton being extremely inconsistent. That's a lot like Derek Carr as well. I just think it has a lot to determine how the Raiders play this season. If they're in the playoff hunt, but at the same time they were kind of this past season up until they completely, messed up the last 5 or 6 games. If they're in playoff contention, if Carr has a good year, I don't think it would be a bad idea if the Raiders would maybe extend him. But if they're last in the AFC West, I think it would not be bad for the Raiders to go ahead and maybe be taking a quarterback of the future in the 2022 draft.
Yeah, when you're comparing the Broncos to the Raiders for which team's going to be the worst in the West, you look at the quarterback position, which is the most important position on the field, yes. But when you look at the rest of the team, the Broncos may have them in every other category, offensive line being the one close one. And I think Darren Waller obviously is his own superstar. But other than that, I mean, defensively, the Broncos are going to be better. Weapons-wise, the Broncos are going to be better. Offensive line, I think they're going to be a lot closer than a lot of Raiders fans think because you can't out-haul your whole offensive line and expect things to just be seamless. There's communication. Even if you did make the right moves and bring in the right guys for those spots, even with the Chargers O-line, I'm bracing for a slow start because there's going to be communication and chemistry issues within an offensive line as well. And a lot of the guys the Raiders are bringing in are younger guys for veterans who are used to doing this. So I think there's going to be some hiccups there, especially in the beginning of the season. I see the Raiders being, one of the bad teams this year. I don't know how bad. Will they be in quarterback position in the draft next year? That would be something to follow along with this contract top.
If the Raiders have, let's say, 6 wins or less, if you're the Raiders, would you trade Carr?
Yes.
Is there any certain team that you think he should possibly be traded to? I know it's way, way too early. And is there a certain price tag, like a 2nd-round pick, 3rd-round pick, something like that?
Oh, it'll probably if they're under 6 wins, you're going to see a similar to Carson Wentz type of deal. It's going to be really cheap, 3rd-round pick, maybe a loan or something similar to that, or compensatory picks, something like that. If they're below 6 wins, now if they're around even again, and Derek Carr looks okay, and he just plays that slightly above average when you look at the totality of it, but he definitely has like lows where it's like, okay, I mean that's bottom half of the league level there, but he has highs that are like, oh, he reaches almost into the top 10. So I like to say just slightly above average. He's in my top 15 probably. But yeah, if he can keep that pace, his value is going to be closer to that 2nd-round pick status. I don't think there's any way you're giving up a 1st-round pick unless it's like pick 30-something, which those teams don't need quarterbacks.
One more comparison with Andy Dalton and Derek Carr to me is, when Andy Dalton was in his prime, which was really basically 2015 up until he got hurt, but the majority of Dalton's career, when A.J. Green was not on the field, he was a completely different quarterback. Mm-hmm. When Darren Waller's not on the field, Derek Carr is a completely different quarterback. He's not nearly as good. I said he was 13-18. And, obviously that's with a healthy Darren Waller. But if Darren Waller is not in the field, to me, Derek Carr drops to 20-25 or something like that. He's very inconsistent. And, Darren Waller is one of the best tight ends in the league. It's not even debatable. He's easily top 3, top 5. But, top quarterbacks should still be able to be pretty good despite if their top weapon, is not on the field. We've seen that with Brady, at times when Gronkowski, was down in New England. He would make stars out of nobody like Edelman and different players like that. I know I'm comparing the most accomplished quarterback of all time to Derek Carr, but it's one of those situations. Another one is, Aaron Rodgers. He made Robert Tonyan into that it seems like a top 5 tight end this season. Yeah, Robert Tonyan was like a nobody heading into the year, and Derek Carr, to me, he has to be more consistent and he has to play a lot better, especially if Waller's not in the field. Because when Waller's not in the field, Carr is, to me, definitely one of the worst quarterbacks in the league.
I'm with you. I wouldn't say one of the worst in the league, but I definitely probably put him right there around 15, 16, 17 at that point without Waller out there. It's so hard to grade guys like Derek Carr because it's so close to guys right there in that little mid-range with him. He's so close to guys like Baker Mayfield, and their play sometimes can mirror each other a little bit fiery, sometimes a little too hard pulling the trigger, but a lot of the times just right. Just not quite an elite quarterback. And you can tell when they're not going to be an elite quarterback. Like that ship has sailed for Carr, in my opinion.
Who would you rather have, Carr or Mayfield?
Right now, I'd rather have Mayfield, because at least I got something with Mayfield where he's still developing and there's a future there. I personally am not a Baker Mayfield hater, but I'm like, guys, calm down. There's people that want to put him in the top 10 already. He's not that yet, and he's nowhere near that. He had 26 touchdown year last year, and we're acting like he was in the MVP conversation. He was not. I had a guy on my TikTok comment section go into a long argue with me saying that Baker Mayfield should be higher ranked than Josh Allen. And I just about lost my damn mind. But I'm also willing to say that Baker Mayfield is becoming a game manager, and I can respect that because his problem was turnovers. So there's improvement, there's growth there. I'll take Baker for the youth and the potential growth that he's going to continue to have in the future.
To me, I kind of think that's a lot closer than some people would think, because I agree what you said with Mayfield being younger, and he still has potential we haven't seen. He's, like you said, he's a game manager. And, for instance, the Bengals lost to the Browns last season on Thursday Night Football. Mayfield threw for like 216 on a touchdown. Oh, Mayfield, it was like week 2.
Ground game, yeah.
Mayfield, he might be an MVP candidate. He threw for 216 yards. Mayfield is good, but I think he's extremely overrated. I'm not trying to be biased, being a Bengals fan, but I feel like if you put Derek Carr in a situation in Cleveland, and they swap scenarios, I don't know if Oakland would be. I don't know if Las Vegas would be as good, and I think the Browns with Carr would probably be just about the same, maybe a game behind, but I would probably take Mayfield because of the potential we haven't seen yet. But I really think they're very comparable in the fact, like I said, Carr was 13-18. I would put Mayfield right around that range as well. Mm-hmm. To me, there's not a huge difference of their play. If you swap teams, I think their teams are most likely going to have a similar record, opposed, with Carr being in Las Vegas and Mayfield being in Cleveland.
I like it. This is what I tell Browns fans when I'm combating them, which is regularly at this point. I tell them that when you're talking about what turned around the Browns, talking about your top 5, maybe Baker's on the edge of that, but the offensive line and the running backs hold more responsibility to the Browns' turnaround than Baker Mayfield. Myles Garrett holds more responsibility to the Browns' turnaround than Baker Mayfield. Kevin Stefanski is more responsible for the Browns turnaround. I mean, where on this list is Baker? He's way down there. And if Kirk Cousins was the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns when all of this started to turn around, it would have still turned around. There was a lot more factors into it. Yes, Baker Mayfield's the poster boy. He's the guy that's out in front of everyone. He's got the college, swagger, I guess is what it was. The story behind him, the confidence behind him. Yes, we want to give it to Baker Mayfield, but really this turnaround was smart draft picks, building that offensive line, getting the right coach, and overall building a team. It is not Baker Mayfield's not Aaron Rodgers coming in there and completely changing it. There's no way. And if the Browns were approached with a deal for Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson or Watson, any of those guys, the Browns would probably take it in a heartbeat.